Have you ever paused to consider how deeply history, power, and these big art movements are woven into the very fabric of our homes, our cities, even the objects we use every day?
It's fascinating when you start looking, isn't it?
Yeah. So today we're going on a deep dive to uncover just that.
It really is astonishing. I
Yeah.
mean, a simple chair, a building's facade, even the way a city is laid out, it can tell a story that spans
A
centuries.
whole narrative.
Exactly. Narrative, shifting empires, revolutionary artistic ideas, and just how human needs change over time.
Absolutely. And that's precisely what we're here to unravel today. This deep dive is all about that profound evolution of interior design and architecture.
hmm
We're going to explore how different imperial powers and these, avant-garde art movements really shaped aesthetic choices, functional choices.
Yeah, the look and the use.
Right. We'll start our journey in the unique context of the Philippines first. Then we'll kind of jump across continents to look at 20th century European modernism.
Big stuff there. Bauhaus to Stijl.
Exactly, before touching on the global contemporary styles that are still shaping our world right now.
So our mission really is to unpack all those intricate layers of design. We want to reveal not just the specific styles, the iconic buildings,
Right.
but also the innovative materials they were using. And this is crucial, the underlying philosophies. What were they thinking?
What drove it all?
Yeah. The goal is to give you, our listener, a shortcut to being genuinely well-informed. We've got some surprising facts, memorable insights, all drawn straight from our source material.
Okay, let's unpack this then. Let's start our deep dive right at the roots of design influence in the Philippines, beginning with that long Spanish legacy. So when we talk about Spain's presence there, what were the defining characteristics they brought with them, culturally?
That's a really crucial starting point. Spain's presence in the Philippines, it really grew out of this long Hispanic history, shaped way back from the Visigoth era right through Ferdinand and Isabella.
Okay.
And these periods, they instilled traits like austerity, stoicism, a certain individualism, bravery.
Strong characteristics.
Very. But what's particularly striking is how Catholicism was just so deeply intertwined with their colonization. It wasn't like later powers. Their mission was profoundly spiritual.
Ah, right. Driven by the Reconquista.
Exactly. That whole centuries-long effort to reclaim Iberia, it meant their main goal was conversion, not just setting up a government. And that had a huge impact on everything they built and designed.
So that intense religious drive, that cultural background, how did that really shape the visual language, the art and architecture they brought over?
Oh, it permeated everything. Absolutely everything. You look at Spanish art from this time, figures like El Greco, for instance.
The Mannerists.
Principal Mannerists, yeah. That style that came after the High Renaissance. Artists often exaggerated figures, made them longer.
Those elongated shapes.
Right, and distorted space sometimes to create these incredibly mystical, almost otherworldly effects. Think of his burial of Count Orgaz or the vision of St. John Divine.
Not quite realism, then.
No, not at all. It was all about emotional and spiritual impact, reflecting that deep Spanish spirituality.
Fascinating. So a direct reflection of their focus on the divine. Who came after El Greco in shaping Spain's artistic identity?
Well, next you have Diego Velázquez, leading Baroque artist, royal painter to Philip IV.
Ah, Las Meninas.
That's the one. And his Portrait of Innocent X. These really define the golden age of Spanish art. Known for their naturalism, but also that dramatic light and shade, that Baroque drama,
Yeah.
yet still with a kind of seriousness in the colors.
And then later, Goya. He seems quite different.
Oh, Goya, yes. Spanish court painter, but in the Romantic era. He brought this raw depiction of brutality, of corruption, like in Kronos devouring one of his children,
Chile.
and the executions of the 3rd of May, 1808. I mean, he really didn't pull any punches, did he?
No, he certainly didn't. It feels like he was painting the raw, uncomfortable truth of his time. So Spanish art gave us that intensity. Their architecture must have echoed it somehow. What about Spanish Gothic, that flamboyant style? What made it stand out?
Oh, it's quite spectacular. Spanish Gothic, the flamboyant style, it's characterized by incredibly intricate vaulting, these complex patterns that seem to just, flow and dance across the ceiling.
Wow.
You can see it in the early Gothic Salamanca Cathedral, loads of detail. Or the high Gothic Toledo Cathedral, famous for its absolutely immense retablo, that huge altarpiece.
And Seville Cathedral.
Oh, the scale of Seville. Late Gothic, and it's actually the largest medieval cathedral anywhere. Just enormous.
Incredible. And beyond the Grand Gothic, our sources talk about something even more uniquely Spanish, that blend of cultures. Tell us about the Romanesque and Moorish influences.
Yes, Spain had this unique architectural path. You find these fascinating Romanesque elements, but with these surprising hints of Moorish design.
Like what?
Well, in Poblet, for instance, some arches are slightly pointed, almost like a whisper of Moorish practice. And then there's S. Isidoro in Leon. You clearly see horseshoe arches there, and that cusped, sort of scalloped edging.
Ah, very distinctive.
Definitely Moorish touches. It's a beautiful reflection of the cultures coexisting in medieval Spain.
That blend, that intermarriage of Christian and Islam, as the sources put it, that really became something distinct, didn't it? The Mudéjar style.
Absolutely. Mudéjar style, flourishing from the 12th to the 16th century, is probably the clearest example of this fusion. You see it so vividly in Moorish architecture, like the Mezquita in Cordoba.
The mosque cathedral, with all the arches.
Yes, those iconic arches, the intricate stucco work, the calligraphy, and even places like the patios of Cordoba show it off beautifully. It's where Islamic decorative arts meet Christian structures. Yeah. Really unique.
Okay, moving into the Renaissance, Spain seemed to develop its own flavor again. Plateresque. What was that about?
Plateresque. From around 1475 to 1550. It's wonderfully named. It means silversmith-like because it's characterized by this incredibly florid ornamentation. Just like the intricate details you'd find on fine silverwork, the University of Salamanca, Granada Cathedral by Diego de Sili, they're prime examples, just brimming with decorative details.
But then, almost like a reaction, you get disornamentado. That sounds starkly different.
It is a complete contrast. This ornamentado, roughly 1500 to 1659, was an austere Renaissance style, very severe, championed by the architect Juan de Herrera.
The Escorial guy.
That's him. The Escorial, that vast palace complex, really embodies this without ornaments idea. It was a deliberate move away from all that Plateresque exuberance, signaling a more severe classical ideal.
But austerity often provokes a reaction, doesn't it? What was the Baroque response?
Oh, it certainly didn't last long. The Baroque, or Churrigueresque style, named after José Churriguera, from about 1650 to 1780, it was a totally flamboyant reaction against that severity.
Right.
It brought back exuberant and colorful surface ornamentation. Intricate, almost wild, with undulated cornices, spirals, stucco shells.
Where can we see that?
Think of the dramatic Baroque facade of Santiago de Compostela, or Toledo Cathedral again, but this time it's El Transparente altarpiece. It's just overflowing with visual richness, almost over the top.
So after that whirlwind tour of Spanish art and architecture, how did all these styles translate into the actual interiors, the furniture in Spanish homes and buildings?
Well, the interiors were this rich tapestry. They combined Moorish and Renaissance details quite freely. They heavily relied on local materials, dark woods, lots of wrought iron.
For those beautiful window grills.
Exactly. And decorative tiles, azulejos. Rooms were often long and narrow, maybe with exposed painted beams on the ceiling, or sometimes intricate geometric wooden panels. A very distinctive look.
You mentioned those wrought iron grills, so deeply recessed doors and windows, I imagine, often with those grills.
Precisely. And for flooring, you'd typically find cool tile or brick, which makes sense for the climate, right?
Yeah.
Walls were often adorned with paintings, maybe rich tapestries or even luxurious leather coverings, created a very layered textural feel. And for everyday objects, machalaca ceramics, bronze, copper utensils were common.
What about the furniture itself? Was it equally ornate or more functional?
Generally, Spanish furniture was quite simple, heavy, rectangular. It often lacked the really elaborate architectural details you might find in, say, Italian Renaissance pieces.
More robust.
Yeah, more robust. Characterized by exposed iron braces, visible nail heads, almost a rustic honesty about it, and durable leather upholstery.
Any key pieces we should know?
Definitely the Vargueno. That's a distinctive writing cabinet, usually with a fall front desk part. And the Salon Filero, the monk's chair. Quite sturdy. You also start seeing some Dutch and Flemish influences creeping in later, like caning and the Flemish scroll detail, hints of broader European trade.
Okay, let's jump forward now. A huge shift in power. The Philippine Revolution of 1898 basically slams the door on Spain, and as our sources say, it marks the Filipinos' openness to Americanization. So what's the key difference here between the American influence and the Spanish?
It's quite a paradox, really. Nationalism, which first drove Filipinos to fight Spain for freedom.
Yeah.
It ultimately led to a stronger imperial power stepping in.
The U.S.
Yes. American imperialism, as it's termed, was maybe a more discreet form of colonization. They focused on supervising the Filipino government before granting self-rule.
Right.
But the fundamental difference from Spain is the method. while the Spanish use religion as their main tool.
Catholicism, as we discussed.
Right. The Americans primarily worked through the system of education. The idea was to prepare locals for self-rule. And this difference really permeated every aspect of design that followed.
So design itself became a tool of influence. How did that play out, starting with, say, urban planning?
Exactly. The Americans brought in the city beautiful concept, much more progressive, more systematic than the old Spanish poblaciones.
What did that involve?
This grand urban planning vision inspired the organized development of Baguio, for example, a major facelifting of old Manila, and the widespread popularization of parks seen as essential for public health and civic pride, a very American idea at the time.
And the buildings themselves, what style did the Americans favor and what message was it sending?
Public buildings predominantly adopted the American neoclassic style, heavy influence from ancient Greek and Roman architecture, and also the Beaux-Arts classicism popular back in the States.
So columns, pediments.
All of that. But it wasn't just about looks. It was intended as a means of education, a good example for private building, projecting an image of order, democracy, progress.
Where can we see this?
Oh, the post office building in Manila, the Paco train station, the Sorsogon provincial capital. Real monumentality. They also systematically introduced new types of public buildings, libraries, post offices, modern hotels, things largely absent under Spain, signaling a shift in public life and infrastructure.
A very clear break from the past, then. Embracing a new modern identity. How did this neoclassical influence filter down into interiors and even into the traditional Filipino home, the bahay na bato?
Well, inside those big neoclassical public buildings, the emphasis was on monumentality rather than grandeur, a sense of solid, imposing scale. Think of the Manila Hotel or the Philippine General Hospital. Domestically, the American influence meant class started showing up in new ways. Like suddenly you needed a garage for your car.
Ah, the automobile age.
Exactly. Signaling status right there on the ground floor, which used to be just for storage. Houses began mimicking American models in their decoration. And you saw the rise of professional architects and interior designers being encouraged. It became a proper field.
So even the beloved bahay na bato got a neoclassical touch, incorporating columns, pediments, maybe caryatids, those sculpted female figures.
Yes, exactly. While still keeping its traditional layout mostly. But here's something really transformative. Indoor plumbing.
That must have been a huge change.
Massive. The Americans brought in proper indoor plumbing systems that meant actual bathrooms inside the house, proper waste disposal, a huge leap in hygiene and comfort.
Are there specific houses that show this transition?
Yeah, the sources mention the Enriquez house by Felix Rojas Sr. as really signifying this Americanization of the Filipino dwelling.
And the Nakpil Bautista house in Quiapo. Sounds like it was hinting at something more.
It was. While it has strong neoclassic features, like that pronounced verticality and slender columns, it also showed hints of early Art Nouveau, maybe even Viennese secession influences, especially in its simpler transom designs. It shows that even with neoclassicism dominating, new artistic ideas were starting to arrive.
Which leads us perfectly into Art Nouveau. This new art style, fluid, undulating natural forms, often kind of whiplash or plant forms. It really started to blossom in the Philippines in the late 1900s. What made it so appealing after all that neoclassical rigidity?
It must have felt like a breath of fresh air. Although it got kind of sidelined by neoclassicism for a bit, it really came back strong from the 1920s right through to the 70s.
Wow, that long.
Yeah. It was eclectic. It mixed neo-Renaissance, Gothic revival, neoclassic elements, created these whimsical, often quite unique configurations. The interiors really embraced what they called the floral style.
Even if some critics found it a bit much, excessive surface decoration.
Ah, yes. But the sources charmingly describe how a flower garden seemed to blossom in every component. You can picture it, can't you?
Definitely. Were there specific Filipino artists or examples that really capture this Art Nouveau wave?
Oh, absolutely. Isabella Campinco's carvings, those semicircular wooden arches, sculpted female heads, they really embodied the style. The De Los Santos Bautista house in Malolos, Bulacan is another great example.
What features did it have?
Detailed Art Nouveau expressions in the staircases, carved transoms, even American-style wooden paneling inside. And Alvaro's trompe-l'oeil murals in the Villavicencio wedding gift house are mentioned too, creating these immersive, almost fantasy-like floral environments.
And how did the houses themselves change? I read they started becoming chalets.
Yes, Houses began transforming to these chalets, which were quite similar to the vernacular ballet, the traditional Filipino house, but with new twists.
Like,
Well, the Gomez house in Pampanga, for instance, shows expanded callados, those pierced work panels above doors designed to brighten rooms, maybe with cutout lyres or flowers. Ironically, though, the increased use of glass, while aiming for light, sometimes made windows smaller and interiors hotter.
interesting trade-off. It sounds like there was also a class element to how these styles were adopted.
There was, yeah. While the elite maybe indulged in those floral excesses, the growing middle class often embraced a more restrained geometric style. You see that in the Pila, Laguna Chalet. A bit more pared down, maybe more modern feeling.
And Andres Luna de San Pedro, he seems like a key figure.
Definitely. Son of the famous painter Juan Luna. He really pushed Art Nouveau architectural forms, most notably with his Crystal Arcade, kind of a forerunner of the modern shopping mall. Really innovative use of glass and steel for its time.
That glass and steel, that forward thinking, it feels like a perfect lead-in to Art Deco. What defined Art Deco, and how did it really cement American influence in the Philippines?
Art Deco, emerging in the 20s, revival in the 60s, it was all about embracing modernity. Geometric motifs, streamlined forms, bold colors, new synthetic materials. It was eclectic, kind of fearlessly plundering, as the sources say, from different historical styles, but totally embracing modern industrial techniques.
And
Crucially, it flourished with the first generation of the country's American-trained architects. Names like Arcadio Arellano, Juan Arellano, Carlos Barreto, Antonio Toledo, Tomas Mapua.
so they brought their U.S. training back home.
Exactly. Their skills, their understanding of these new styles were highly expressive of how Filipinos were responding to movements brought in by the Americans. It signaled a confident, modern national identity taking shape.
So these architects really put Art Deco on the map. What are some iconic examples of their work?
Well, Juan Arellano's Metropolitan Theater is a prime example. It really showcased the hero of the day, which was steel-frame concrete.
The material itself.
Yes. This new material allowed for so much flexibility, those signature circular and curved forms you see in Art Deco. Andres Luna San Pedro St. Cecilia's Hall is another significant Art Deco structure, really embodying that modern streamlined look.
Then what about houses? How did Art Deco change domestic architecture?
Big changes there, too. Those traditional silongs, the raised ground floors of the Bahay Nabato, they shrank, sometimes to just crawl spaces. Smaller bungalows and chalets were even built on single levels.
And the living spaces.
Public areas, like living rooms, dining rooms, started moving down to the ground floor, signaling a more outward-looking, accessible kind of home life.
And electricity. Meralco, starting in 1903, must have revolutionized interiors.
No, completely transformed them. With artificial lighting and ventilation becoming available, glass started replacing the traditional Kapis shells and windows much more widely.
Letting the light in.
Exactly, allowing sunlight to stream into all the rooms, creating much brighter interior spaces. It literally and figuratively lit up a new era of home design.
So walk us through those specific Art Deco interior features. What would you see inside one of these homes?
Okay, you'd probably notice these triumph ceilings first, often with Kapis shell-light diffusers casting the soft ambient light, and maybe large hand-painted central panels.
Painted with what?
Oh, fantasies of rainbows, clouds, birds. Quite spectacular. Then you'd have massive staircases rising from enormous newel posts, often with gilt Art Deco incisions, these gilded carved details. Very grand entrances.
And the floors.
Widespread use of machuca tiles,
Yeah.
often in bold geometric patterns, creating these wide, uncovered floor surfaces. Very characteristic.
Can you give us specific house examples?
Sure. Juan Nakpil's Gala Rodriguez house, the Dr. Luis Santos house in Bulacan, both apparently feature those detailed ceiling paintings,
Right.
even furniture adapted. There's the ambassador chair.
From Manila.
Yeah, origins traced to a 1930s Manila catalog. Apparently it looks a lot like a design by Warren MacArthur for the Ambassador Hotel in L.A. Shows how quickly global design trends were being picked up and adapted locally.
Okay, so we've traced this fascinating path in the Philippines, seeing Spanish colonial layers, then American modernism, Art Nouveau, Art Deco, creating this really rich hybrid design language. Now let's pivot dramatically to Europe, early 20th century, a continent in turmoil, but also the crucible for some hugely influential modernist movements. What was the backdrop for this explosion of modernism?
It was a truly transformative and frankly traumatic time. World War I, 1914 and 1918, just reshaped the continent entirely. And the Treaty of Versailles afterwards in 1919, It deeply impacted Germany especially. Harsh restrictions, reparations, lost territory,
Tough time.
definitely. This era of upheaval, disillusionment, it led artists and designers to question everything. They were looking for new ways to build, to create for a world that felt fundamentally broken and needed rebuilding.
And society itself was changing rapidly too, wasn't it? Especially for women.
Absolutely. Fashion was shedding its old constraints right alongside everything else. You get the new woman of the 1920s.
The flapper, bobbed hair.
Exactly. Bobbed hair, knee-length dresses, showing more legs, so shoes and stockings suddenly become important fashion statements. And designers like Paul Poiret, sometimes called the king of fashion, were key.
What did he do?
He literally freed women from corsets and petticoats, advocated for looser, leaner lines, and he brilliantly blended fashion with avant-garde art. It was all part of this broader push for modernity, for freedom.
This cultural ferment seems like the perfect setup for De Stijl. That school of art founded in the Netherlands, 1917. What was their core philosophy? Who were the key players?
De Stijl, active until about 1927, was radical, pure abstraction. The philosophy was basically to strip art down to its absolute most fundamental elements. Meaning only black and white, plus the primary colors, strict rectangular forms, and a very deliberate use of asymmetry. It was named after a magazine they published, and the founders included architects like Gerrit Rietveld and artist Theo van Doesburg, and of course, most famously, Piet Mondrian.
Mondrian, a giant of abstraction. How did he apply these De Stijl principles in his art? What was he trying to achieve?
Mondrian is iconic for those abstract paintings, right? The rectilinear grids, the primary colors. He strictly limited his palette, used asymmetrical balance, basically radically simplifying everything to reflect what he believed was the underlying universal order of the world.
How did he get there?
His tree series is a great way to see it. It shows his journey from painting recognizable trees to these pure geometric forms. Even his later Broadway Boogie Woogie respects the flatness of the canvas, using rectangles as universal forms, but still conveying rhythm and energy.
It's interesting, though, because while Mondrian pushed to pure abstraction, someone like Wassily Kandinsky, the Russian pioneer, his improvisation works still had hints of the natural world, didn't they? Like, he didn't want it to just become pattern.
That's a really great point. Kandinsky kept that link, however tenuous. And De Stijl's influence, it went directly into architecture and interior design, translating these abstract ideas into habitable spaces.
It's like Van Doesburg's work.
Yeah, Van Doesburg's Meudon house design tried to translate abstract forms into 3D. And his Café Lobet interior was strikingly modern, using those abstract geometric forms, although apparently the public wasn't quite ready for it.
But the truly iconic De Stijl building has to be Rietvald's Schroeder house, right? What made it such a radical break?
Oh, the Schroeder house in Utrecht, designed by Gerrit Rietveld with Truus Schroeder, the client.
Right.
It's important. It was absolutely radical. It had revolutionary sliding panels inside.
To change the space?
Exactly. Flexible, reconfigurable rooms. And it proudly displayed that unmistakable De Stijl color scheme. White, black, red, blue, yellow. You also had Jacobus Hode's Scheepvaartstraat housing projects. Very crisp, white, minimalist. They got international recognition, too.
So if the architecture was breaking boundaries, what about De Stijl furniture?
De Stijl furniture was all about radical simplicity, getting down to essential elements. Rietveld's red and blue chair is the famous one, made of simple square bits of wood, plywood seat and back, highlighted with those primary colors.
And the Z chair.
Also Rietveld, equally geometric, abstract, primary colors, black on white or gray, made from just 4 flat wooden rectangles cleverly joined. But the irony is, while these pieces were groundbreaking, De Stijl's direct influence wasn't maybe as wide as other movements. It was relatively short-lived, and they didn't achieve huge production numbers.
Which brings us neatly to the absolute giant, the Bauhaus. Established by Walter Gropius in Weimar, Germany, 1919. This feels like the culmination of so many modernist ideas. What was its core philosophy?
The Bauhaus aimed to synthesize technology, craft, and design aesthetics, a huge emphasis on functional design. It was basically reassessing design based on economy, durability, fitness for purpose, and aesthetic merit. A very practical post-war approach.
Was there an early example?
Yes, the Haus Amhorn from 1923. It was furnished entirely by Bauhaus students and masters. It perfectly showed these ideals, a kind of total work of art and design, very functional.
And its architectural influence was just immense. Where do we see that Bauhaus vision most clearly?
Well, the Bauhaus vision was definitely shaped by that post-WWI Treaty of Versailles context. Designers turned their backs on fussy tradition, looked to fundamental principles. Its architectural influence was huge. You see it in those exhibition housing groups, like Weissenhof-Siedlung in Stuttgart.
With Mies van der Rohe, Le Corbusier.
Exactly, and Wirkensiedlung in Vienna. These were specifically designed to show the public what modernist ideas look like in practice. Walter Gropius's own Bauhaus buildings in Dessau were actually among the first to extensively use something called curtain walling.
Curtain walling. What exactly is that, and why was it such a big deal?
Okay, so it's basically a non-structural outer wall, usually glass or lightweight panels. It just hangs from the building's main frame like a curtain. It's not actually holding the roof up.
Ah, I see.
It was a game changer because it allowed for these huge, expansive glass facades, flooded interiors with natural light, blurred the lines between inside and out. A truly innovative approach that defined modern skyscrapers and, honestly, still influences design massively today.
And speaking of skyscrapers, Ludwig Mies van der Rohe, he's synonymous with them. He had a very clear philosophy, didn't he? Less is more.
He did. Mies sought an architectural style that represented modern times with extreme clarity and simplicity. That's where his famous sayings come from. God is in the detail, and yes, less is more. He believed stripping away anything unnecessary revealed the true essence of a building.
And his works are just legendary. The German Pavilion in Barcelona.
A masterpiece, an archetype of his flowing open-plan design, using glass and marble walls to define spaces without conventional exterior walls, hugely influential on modern interior planning.
And the Tugendhat House.
Another prime example. Open planning again, floor-to-ceiling glass walls that could actually be lowered into the basement, turning it into a completely open pavilion to the garden. Incredible. And we should absolutely mention Lily Reich here.
His collaborator.
Yes, she worked very closely with Mies on the interior designs for these and other major projects, a significant contributor to their overall aesthetic and function. Her role is often overlooked, but was crucial.
Good point. And Bauhaus furniture. It was all about new materials, mass production.
Yeah.
Yet so many designs are still coveted, still produced today.
Absolutely. Marcel Breuer, he invented tubular steel furniture, gave us classics like the Wasley chair, first designed for Wasley Kandinsky's own quarters.
Makes sense.
And the Secca armchair. He also explored bent plywood with things like the Isakon chair.
And Mies himself.
Mies van der Rohe, of course. The iconic Barcelona chair, the Barcelona daybed, the Mr. chair, the Bruno chair, often featuring luxurious leather, bright chrome, and that signature cantilevered seating, that feeling of floating.
Le Corbusier, too.
Yes, another giant of modernism. He contributed with pieces that often used simple, almost traditional furniture elements, but in a modern way. The grand comfort chair, that cube of cushions in a frame, and the sleek LC4 chaise lounge, instantly recognizable.
It's fascinating, though, because while many Bauhaus designs aimed for mass production using new materials like cantilevered steel, bent plywood, a lot of the early prototypes were actually handcrafted.
That's the irony, isn't it? They were maybe too radical for widespread mass production right at the beginning. The metal workshop especially was seen as this laboratory of modernity. It produced enduring classics like Wilhelm Wagenfeld and Carl Juker's 1924 MT8 table lamp, that simple glass and metal lamp.
Still looks modern.
Totally. Even their textiles reflected that abstract geometric style, showed how they rethought every single aspect of design.
Okay, we're an incredible journey so far. From Spanish colonial influences mixed with local styles in the Philippines, through American modernism arriving with Neoclassicism, Art Nouveau, Art Deco, then that leap to Europe, witnessing the radical purity of Stijl and the hugely influential functional spirit of Bauhaus rising from the ashes of war, fundamentally changing design thinking. Now let's quickly cover some key later 20th and 21st century styles that continue to shape our world. First up, Brutalism, 1950s, 60s. What was that all about?
Brutalism was, well, brutal, a stark departure. It emphasized bait-and-brute, raw concrete, basic exposed building processes, often a very raw, unadorned look. It was basically a heavy masonry take on modernism, really inspired by Le Corbusier's powerful Unité d'habitation, which celebrated concrete.
And it certainly made an impact visually. Bernard Goldberg's Marina City in Chicago, those corncob towers.
Classic brutalism. Or William Perrier's Geisel Library in San Diego, designed to look like hands holding books. Very direct, monumental form. And Moshe Safdie's Habitat 67 in Montreal, that housing complex made of stacked prefab concrete boxes, almost like futuristic cave dwellings.
Then we get postmodernism starting in the 60s. A direct reaction against modernism.
Exactly. It famously championed complexity, contradiction.
Yeah.
It started embracing historical styles again, vernacular elements, even illusion and humor, things modernism had rejected. Robert Venturi famously flipped Mies van der Rohe's less is more on its head, declaring less is a bore.
Huh. Injecting fun back in.
Kind of. Injecting wit, ornamentation, historical references back into design.
Yeah.
Playfulness.
And Venturi's Vanaventuri house for his mother is the classic example.
Absolutely. It's full of complexities, contradictions, rooms with odd corners, a staircase that widens then narrows. Then you have Michael Graves' the Portland Municipal Services building, abstracting classical elements into bold, colorful forms. Very different from stark modernism.
And Philip Johnson's AT&T building, the Chippendale top.
Yes. Famously described as resembling a giant Chippendale cabinet. A very direct, almost ironic historical nod. And of course, you have IMP's controversial glass pyramid at the Louvre, that stark juxtaposition of modern geometry against historical architecture. Very postmodern debate.
And the furniture followed suit. Whimsical, complex.
Definitely. Robert Venturi designed a chair using modern molded plywood, but making it playfully suggest an old Chippendale chair. Ettore Sottsass, part of the Memphis group, created the Carlton bookcase, visually wild, brightly colored, totally challenging what a bookcase should look like. And Alessandro Mendini's Proust armchair, carved, hand-painted wood, fabric, almost like usable sculpture.
Moving into the 70s, we hit high-tech, structural expressionism. What drove this?
The core idea was to maximize the usable interior space by putting all the building's guts, stairs, lifts, plumbing, ventilation on the exterior, exposing the workings. The term high-tech came from a book documenting this trend of using industrial materials and components in design.
Showing off the engineering.
Exactly. The building itself becomes almost a machine for living or working in. Norman Foster's HSBC Hong Kong building is a key example.
Huge focus on sustainability there too, right?
Yes, lots of natural light, even using seawater for the aircon system.
Yeah.
Then there's Richard Rogers' Pompidou Center in Paris, famously exposing all its color-coded pipes and ducts on the outside. Looks like it's permanently under construction or maybe an oil refinery. A truly radical statement.
And Renzo Piano.
His Jan Rietschbouw Cultural Center in New Caledonia uses these beautiful curved timber structures with clever passive ventilation, getting rid of the need for AC. Blends traditional forms and materials with advanced tech beautifully.
Okay, then we have a cluster of contemporary styles. Harder to pin down, maybe. Expressionism, 1970s.
Expressionism in architecture, characterized by distorted shapes, fragmented lines, trying to express inner feeling over objective reality. Erich Mendelsohn's Einstein Tower in Potsdam is a great early example, actually, even though it predates the 70s label, that astrophysical observatory where the form itself seemed to twist and reach, very organic, very sculptural.
And critical regionalism, also 70s. What's its focus?
Critical regionalism is an avant-garde approach, but one rooted in the local, emphasizing context, climate, local materials, or building traditions, but in a modern way. Jorn Utzon's Sydney Opera House is a fantastic example.
For sails.
Those iconic sail shapes, but also its innovative use of cold seawater from the harbor for air conditioning, a perfect marriage of high design and responding to the specific place.
And finally, deconstructivism, 1990s. Sounds like it's taking things apart.
It kind of is. It attempts to view architecture in bits and pieces, as the sources say, deeply influenced by the French philosopher Jacques Derrida and his ideas about deconstruction. It disassembles the basic elements of architecture, walls, roof, structure, and reassembles them in ways that seem fragmented, chaotic, unstable. Illustrating the pleasures of unease, perhaps, it challenges our perception of form.
And the key architects here really push boundaries. Frank Gehry.
Oh, definitely. Gehry is known for his original, sculptural, often audacious work. The Guggenheim Museum Bilbao is the iconic one.
It's a swirling titanium.
Exactly. Those swarming curved volumes, glass curtain walls, and his Walt Disney Concert Hall in LA, they feel like dynamic, frozen moments of movement or even explosion.
And Zaha Hadid, first woman to win the Pritzker Prize.
Yes, Zaha Hadid, known for truly radical deconstructivist designs, like the Vitra fire station in Germany. Composed of these sharply angled concrete planes, makes the building look almost like a bird taking flight or something crashed. Deliberately avoids conventional color and right angles, creates a really unusual, disorienting spatial experience.
And briefly, formalism. What's the emphasis there?
Formalism really emphasizes pure shape, rigid geometric forms, sometimes above all else. You see it clearly in IMP's Bank of China Tower in Hong Kong, that distinctive triangular shape, very efficient structurally. And the Air Force Chapel in Colorado Springs, by Esso and Walter Netsch.
The spires.
Those 17 striking spires made of tubular steel tetrahedrons filled with colored glass. A very powerful example of pure form dominating the design.
Wow, what an absolutely incredible journey we've taken. I mean, starting with that grand, sometimes somber Spanish colonial style in the Philippines, infused with those Moorish details.
Then seeing the arrival of American modernism, bringing Neoclassicism, but then evolving into Art Nouveau's organic flow and Art Deco's sleek geometry. A real layering of influences.
And then jumping across the ocean to Europe, witnessing the radical purity of Distill, the functional, world-changing spirit of the Bauhaus rising from war, fundamentally altering how we think about form, material, space. It's huge.
Absolutely. And then catapulting through the later 20th and 21st centuries, seeing the raw power of brutalism, the playful rebellion of postmodernism, the exposed workings of high tech, and those fragmented sculptural forms of deconstructivism. Every space really does tell such a detailed, layered story, doesn't it? Once you know how to look.
And that's exactly it. Hopefully you, our listener, feel equipped now to see more than just the surface aesthetics, to see those layers of meaning, the historical echoes in a building's columns, the functional beauty in a modernist chair, maybe the organic flow of an Art Nouveau detail somewhere unexpected.
You're seeing the ideas, the history, the context.
So as you go about your day, maybe look around your own home, your city, with this new lens. Spot those hidden narratives. And here's a final thought to ponder. In our incredibly interconnected world, where design influences flash around the globe almost instantly, what new, maybe hybrid styles are emerging right now? What will define the next chapter?
And how will we, as informed observers, start to recognize and understand them? What stories will they tell?
Something to keep an eye out for.